Browns getting ready for a Monday night game out in San Francisco, week 5 of the NFL season, and it is the Browns' third nationally televised game. Let's get back to Mac Robinson from the Orange and Brown Report. Mac, appreciate it. And, you know, Browns fans could get used to this. Primetime games, Browns actually have played very well in the 2 earlier ones, and this is the tough part of the schedule. There's a part of the schedule, if the Browns can get through this part pretty good, where you've got the Steelers a couple times who look to be down, the Dolphins who are down, the Bengals. So this is the time, if the Browns can get through this, they have to feel pretty good about it. This is an important game for the Browns here in week 5, without question.
Oh, without question, like you said. I mean, the fact that overall for this team, you already see through 5 weeks of the season, you have 4 different times, really, that they're going to have to adjust to every single week and adjust the practice schedule. So it keeps them on their toes. And I think that this is actually going to be a good test for the Browns, especially as the season progresses. And if they're able to get into a rhythm with all of the change that's going around, if they're able to get into a rhythm with that, this could lead to great things for the team going down the stretch when they get into more of a consistent schedule.
You look at the quarterback, and a lot has been made of Jimmy Garoppolo, but the Browns' defense is among the NFL league leaders as a team in sacks. And Garoppolo's a guy, he's completing almost 70% of his passes, but he has thrown 4 interceptions, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So he is a guy that if you pressure, you can pressure him into some mistakes.
Yeah, and I think that given the offensive line and the issues that they've had with Joe Staley going down early on in the season, I wonder if the Browns are going to be able to create a little bit more pressure, especially given Myles-Garrett had a little bit of a down game last week. Obviously, no major huge game that he had. I mean, no Jets game. But, I mean, it seems like Myles-Garrett steps up in those big types of matchups. Not to mention, too, olivier-vernon, just 1 sack on the season. Wouldn't shock me to see him start to get involved a little bit more as the season progresses.
Now, they are a team in the 49ers that are running the ball very effectively, second in the NFL, 175 yards a game. And they're using a 3-headed monster. Their big signing, Tevin Coleman, was hurt week 1. So they're going with Matt Breida, and a former Brown guy in Raheem Mostert has stepped up and has run the ball effectively. Obviously, that's got to be a focus, as you got to shut down their running game.
Yeah, and especially, too, like you said, I mean, if you pressure Jimmy Garoppolo, you're going to end up causing a little bit of mistakes. So if you can shut down the run game and force the ball into Garoppolo's hands, I think that you can go ahead and see the Browns defense have a very successful day. I mean, with or without Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward, at that point, you're looking at it and just saying, you know what? I think that I like the Browns' chances. I mean, T.J. Carey and Terrence Mitchell have done phenomenally in their stead as the season has progressed. In these last 2 games, they've looked phenomenal.
Now, a concern is, you know, the big-time receiver for the 49ers is their tight end, Kittle. And tight ends have given the Browns fits the last couple of years.
Yeah, and that's where you're going to have Joe Schobert step up in this game. I look at Joe Schobert, and it's basically Joe Schobert and the kids, as Joe Schobert, Sione Takitaki, and Mack Wilson are going to have to step up. And you might see a little bit more of Mack Wilson covering him. And now, obviously, Mack Wilson, his strength coming out of college was his pass coverage ability. And so for him, if he's able to handle that side of the ball, I think that the Browns are in a good spot.
You have to be impressed. I have been impressed. Have you as well with the way Schobert's played? I know some people made mention of how many missed tackles. He played really well, I thought, against the Ravens.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, he had a nose for the ball. And, I mean, obviously, when you have 17 tackles, you're going to end up finding your way into the pile almost every single time. But for Joe Schobert, he's really stepped up as a leader. And really, he's shown off why he's one of the best players on this Browns defense, despite all of the additions.
Yeah, you're telling me I'm the master of the obvious, saying he played well when he had 17. I get it. What about the defensive backfield? You know, you touched on it a little bit. They've been banged up, and they've found a way against some pretty high-powered offenses to not be overwhelmed.
Yeah, and that's what I've been really impressed by so far has really been TJ Carey stepping up. I mean, obviously, TJ Carey was one of the keys to this defense entering this season, but Terrence Mitchell really just having the consummate pro approach, which is just, hey, you know what? I got to go and do my job. I got to step up into that starting role. I'm going to do what I have to do. And really, he performed well last season, showing that he's able to pick up that play right now. And really, I'm interested to see how this defensive backfield shakes out because, honestly, in the offseason, I thought that was one of the possible weaknesses, but it's really turned out to be one of the strengths.
Yeah, and the depth has been impressive, as you touched on. So there's a couple things going against the Browns. They got to go cross-country. They got to go to L.A., and the 49ers have had an entire week to rest and kind of focus on the Browns. You know, they're coming off the bye. Does that factor into the equation at all?
For me, I think it does. I think that it wouldn't shock me at all if you see them have a slow start to the game where it might take a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half, to really get rolling and really get into a rhythm. But the one thing I will say for the Browns is that it's a little bit easier for East Coast teams to go to the West Coast just because it's a 3-hour difference in their favor compared to the West Coast teams where you're traveling across the country. You're going to have the extra 3 hours added on to it. So I feel like the Browns it's more of a disruption for their comfort. But at the same time, I feel like they're actually going to be in a good spot overall. And I think that it might take them a little bit, but I do think that they end up getting there.
Mac Robinson from the Orange and Brown Report. Great stuff. We appreciate the time.